Hi guys, for today's video I have a review as well as a little bit of a demo on the new Wet n Wild Photofocus foundation as well as the concealer. I've seen so many YouTubers talking about this. It's just been going around YouTube like crazy, and there have been so many awesome reviews on this foundation. I knew I just had to test it out, but my opinion might be a little bit different than everyone else's. So if you guys want to see my review on the new Wet n Wild foundation and concealer, just keep on watching. So hopping right into the basics, I'm going to be starting off with the foundation. I picked up two shades, one being a Nude Ivory and one in the shade Buff Bisque. What I really love about these foundations to start off is that on the packaging it explains what kind of shade it is, if it's light medium, if it's medium, somewhere in between, or if it's going to be a neutral, a warm, or a cool shade. So that's what I really love. I really can appreciate that in a foundation because, I mean, the name Buff Bisque doesn't really tell me much, you know what I mean? I like that it has the specifics underneath it. So I guess just to start off, I'm going to be reading right off wetnwildbeauty.com. Again, this is the new Photofocus foundation. It retails for $5.99 and comes in 20 different shades. 20 shades is pretty good. I'm definitely not mad at that, and the price is awesome. Definitely not mad at the price. I mean, you get such an awesome amount of product. You're getting 1 fluid ounce, and it's a really nice glass container, as you guys heard there. The description, it says, "This is your skin but only better. Our new high-performing skin perfecting foundation underwent major road testing under 7 different photo lighting conditions to deliver flawless camera-ready makeup every time. Matte, light diffusing complex to give your skin a no-filter perfection." And then just some of the claims are just that it's not going to flash back, tested under the 7 light conditions again, sunlit sky, outdoors, indoors, flash, fluorescent light, bathroom light, and nightclub light. And then it just kind of describes the different phones that they used, and like the different, you know, tests and stuff that they did to see if this would really work in the 7 conditions. When it comes to the shade range of the foundation, I mean, 20 shades isn't bad, but I really had a lot of trouble finding one that would match me. I'm definitely a neutral girl. I'm not super yellow by any means. I'm not super cool tone. I always love a nice neutral foundation. But I didn't really think that the neutral shades were the best. I really couldn't find one for me, and I actually had to get 2 shades. Like I mentioned, Nude Ivory, which is the light neutral, and Buff Bisque, which is the light medium neutral. This one is way too light and this one is way too dark, so I did have to do some playing around. I did have to do some mixing. I do feel like the shade is a little bit off. I feel like there should be a more mid-tone shade like in between these for my skin tone. I know they can't make a shade for everyone's exact skin tone, but I feel like for being almost like sister shades, these two are almost really off from each other, you know what I mean? So again, I'm not thrilled with the shade range personally, but if you guys found one that works for you, that is totally awesome. I feel like the fair shades are awesome. They go super fair. This is like the 5th darkest shade, and this is white on me. So if you're fair, you're probably going to find one that works for you in the Photofocus line. I'm going to get into the actual application of the foundation in a second, but really big side note, do not use this foundation with a silicone based primer. I tried this out twice with a silicone based primer, my e.l.f. mineral infused and my Smashbox Photo Finish. Horrible. It broke down so bad. I'm going to insert pictures if they're not like too gross. It broke down so bad. It slipped all over my face. It broke apart. It just settled into lines. It was just no good at all with the silicone based primer. So if you're going to use anything like the Smashbox Photo Finish, the Maybelline Baby Skin, anything like that, stay away. Definitely try out a different primer. It was just not pretty at all. The primer that I used today was a little bit more hydrating. It is the CoverGirl True Blend 1, the oily skin formula. It has more of like a moisturizing cream finish, and I definitely do see an improvement so far in how the foundation looks. I guess the silicone is just way too slippery. Okay, so now I'm going to be inserting a cutaway of me applying the foundation. So like I said, I did do half of my face with a beauty blender and then the other half of my face with a brush. So starting off with the beauty blender side, you guys see I am applying a light shade and then the darker shade to mix them. You don't need a lot of this foundation. I did try this foundation out a couple times previously, like I said, and I put way too much on and it did turn like super cakey super fast. So less is more with this foundation, definitely. So with the beauty blender side, I found that it blended super well and I really liked the finish. It was definitely more natural and lively looking, but it was definitely a lot less coverage and I could still see some spots peeking through. So it was nice. It was definitely a really pretty finish, but it wasn't anything like life-changing, mind-blowing, and I did have a lot of unevenness and some spots peeking through. And then I did try to like go in and layer the foundation, and I didn't really feel like it was building up that well at all. I really just felt like it was still like a really like light, almost like a sheer coverage on that side of my face. It definitely, like when I looked side by side, evened out my skin tone on this side for sure. But again, I had a lot of spots peeking through. It just wasn't awesome for me when it came to the coverage with the beauty blenders. Then I went ahead with my Morphe E6, my favorite foundation brush ever, on the right side of my face, and I definitely found that with this application it was way more full coverage, but the downside was it was super matte and super dry looking. It clung to a lot of my textures. I felt like I had larger pores on the side that I did with the brush, whereas the beauty blender I felt like really kind of patted the foundation into my pores and smoothed that out. And with the brush, the foundation was a lot tougher to blend. Oh, and the scent of this foundation is a whole nother story. The scent of this foundation smells like I'm straight up applying paint to my face, and I really don't like it at all. So I guess overall my preferred method of application is with the beauty blender, which is super strange because you guys know I always prefer my brush, but it was just way too matte. It was just way too clingy and dry looking on the side of my face where I used my brush. I just definitely was not a fan of that. So moving on to concealer, I did pick up the matching Photofocus concealer, and the shade that I have is Light Ivory. I have an issue with the shades of these. It literally comes in 6 different shades, which is okay, I guess, for a drugstore concealer. It's pretty average, but this is literally the lightest shade, and it's like just my skin tone. You'll guys see when I insert the demo over me talking, it's literally just my skin tone. I don't find that it gives me much brightness. It's a really nice shade. I like it for under my eyes. It's like a little bit lighter than my skin, but I'm just like, I'm trying to think of everyone out there who's lighter than me, who's super porcelain. This is going to be very dark on them, so I feel like they could definitely expand the shade range of the concealer by a lot. So getting into the application, as you guys can see, it's a little bit just my skin tone. It's not giving me a lot of brightness or anything like that, but I literally had to dip in 3 or 4 times to apply the concealer where I wanted it to be, 3 times being just underneath my eye, which is a little crazy. Usually I don't necessarily have to do that, so I'm not the biggest fan of the applicator of this product. But once I got that all on and I started to blend it out with my beauty blender, it is really, really pretty, this concealer. It's definitely, like, in comparison to something like my Shape Tape, you just can't compare them. This one is a lot lighter, a lot more natural looking, a lot more dewy, but all in all, it is really, really pretty. It blended out like a dream underneath my eyes. It felt super hydrating, and with the beauty blender, it didn't settle into any of my lines or anything like that. So this concealer definitely gets an approval from me. And then I did want to go ahead and test it out with my concealer brush, which is my typical way of applying concealer. It was okay. Again, with the brush, I found it was a little bit tougher to blend. Coverage wise, it was the same as the beauty blender, but I also felt that with the brush, it kind of settled into my lines because I couldn't really get up in there and really tap it in with the damp beauty blender. Overall, the concealer is super pretty. It's definitely something that I would keep more for like a day-to-day or like a no makeup. It's definitely not comparable to like the Tarte Shape Tape, or even my Maybelline Better Skin has better coverage, but it's super pretty, super hydrating under the eyes. I really like it. This one definitely has my seal of approval, but the foundation, not so much. And I just wanted to touch on the drying aspect of the foundation again. You guys know that I have oily skin and I usually love myself a nice matte finish, but with this foundation, I find myself wanting to drench my face in Fix Plus. I don't know, for some reason the foundation just makes me look dry, and you guys, I'm oily, like I said, it makes me look dry. It really settles into, I have a lot of texture in between my eyebrows, around my nose, around my mouth. It just tends to break down pretty bad. I definitely think it looks okay on the camera besides the color being a little bit off, but up close it's just not that pretty, and then it's really not that comfortable. I'm usually the type of person that can deal with the makeup on my face for a long time, from 6 a.m., 7 a.m. before class when I do my full beat to midnight before I take a shower and go to bed. I can deal with the makeup. Like, it feels fine to me, but for some reason this foundation 5-6 hours in, I just really couldn't wait to take my makeup off. I was shopping and I was like, I want to go home and just rub my face with a makeup wipe because it felt that uncomfortable. I could really feel it just like breaking up, and I was getting just like, it was just not pretty. I was super greasy in here but dry everywhere else. It just really didn't work for me. Overall, to conclude this review on the new Wet n Wild Photo Focus Stuff, the concealer is definitely good. I definitely don't hate it. I can definitely see myself using this, like I said, day to day if I just want a cheap alternative. It's definitely super pretty and blends really nicely under the eyes. I don't have any issues with it besides the shade range. The foundation, again, it's not like the worst, like the most horrible, disgusting foundation I've ever tried. Would I ever think about putting it on my face again? No, definitely not. It's just not pretty. It's not comfortable. The shades are just off for me, and I feel so bad. I feel like I'm like bashing it so bad. I love Wet n Wild. I think their products are amazing. Just this particular foundation is not the best for me. But again, I'm going to see how it holds up with the different primer, because with the silicone one, it just wasn't pretty. Oh, and just to quickly touch on why I didn't test out the powder in this video, I tried it in the past. I actually wanted to test it out with my Holy Grail foundations. Didn't really like it. It was okay. It was just way too finely milled to really control my oils, and that's like my #1 thing when it comes to a setting powder. And that completes my review on the Wet n Wild Photo Focus line. I'm really sorry that this was pretty negative and bashful on the foundation. I love Wet n Wild as a brand. It has nothing to do with them. This particular product just did not work for me. And please don't get offended if you love this foundation. I really wanted it to work, and I'm super happy if it does work for you. That is totally awesome. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys!